Welcome back to another episode of We Are VR Troopers. Last time, the war has actually been on the troopers as well as the mutants' favor, as JB have actually lost to Doom Master, but fortunately Bloodclot finished him off with the awesome laser lance. Despera has actually defeated most of the mutants as well as the undead, including Caitlin's doppelganger. But the original Caitlin, as well as Snake, actually finished her off for good. Unfortunately, the scepter was incinerated due to Grimlord's Dark Fortress. And also, Ryan decided to take the fight to Grimlord, and he barely won. He was able to rescue his father thanks to Razor Kid, and he actually got his memories restored as he was being infected and hypnotized by that white goo. The same one that Amphibidon, I think it's what it was, Amphibidor used. So, Ryan actually had his powers ran out, as well as Grimlord's, because the power of the Pyramid of Power was actually absorbed by Galileo and then soon destroyed, as well as Karl Zepter's fortress. So, both Ryan and Grimlord both lost their powers, and he barely escaped from the Dark Fortress itself. So the war is nearly complete. But what's Ryan's fate? Let's find out. Alright, episode 99. Victory is at hand. Ryan recently returned to his retro form after his virtual powers ran out as he was on his last legs fighting Grimlord. Tyler was still in bondage and the Steels were just knocking on death's door until the evil ruler of realities got his powers sapped and turned into his true identity, Karl Zichter. It was thanks to the green crystal prism known as the Pyramid of Empowerment that Cheetah, Gangrene, Galileo, and both Jackson destroyed. During the fall of the virtual Dark Fortress from the alien onslaughts outside, Ryan discarded his virtualizer thinking he'd get caught in the crossfire. He did manage to escape, however by a leap of faith, from Grimlord's spacecraft just seconds before it exploded. Razor Kid immediately brought him in as he was piloting the Blue Hawk, which Tyler himself was impressed with his skills since he was an alien. He made a soft, slow landing while the mutants and the remaining trooper Caitlin cheered for their final triumph over their nemesis, as was Cheetah, JB, Jeb, and even Tau. But not everything was so exhilarating. As soon as Kid saw the reality barrier while he and Tyler were escorting the unconscious Ryan out, the dragon carried him to it, thinking he wouldn't survive long in the weakened condition he was in. Tyler agreed, though he suggested to look through it first to make sure it was a safe location. Kid peeked through and saw a human trekking toward the rip. He began to panic and shoved Ryan's body through it. The break closed as soon as the trooper escaped from the virtual realm. Caitlin was one of the more serious onlookers, as when she saw Ryan, she was taken aback. "Tyler!" He looked toward her with a grim expression. "Is Ryan okay? Did he survive Grimlord and the fall of his dark fortress?" Painful memories of his narrow escape from the virtual dungeon came rushing back to her, as he, Jeb, and Razor Kid were desperate to escape the labyrinth they were trapped in like rats. Ryan, on the other hand, was so stubborn as he anxiously attempted to find his dad there, until it self-destructed, and there was rumored to be nothing left. Both the Professor and JB theorized the dungeon was completely wiped out from all realities, until the trio barely survived. "I believe he was, Caitlin. But Razor Kid just found a rip in the reality barrier. We will soon close these anomalies, but I hope this leads to a safe haven. He really needs to recover, but not here." "Kid!" The alien looked up with a startled expression, then ran to the duo. "Where's Ryan? Where did the reap lead to?" I'm not sure. All I could see was some kind of a paved road and a sort of temple yonder. It looked very ancient, but I never had the chance to look through it. I was scared when I saw a female, walk up to us. I didn't want to go through with her seeing." He tried to connect dots. He assumed this was a Buddhist temple similar to the one he and Ryan go to all the time. If that's the case, then he may be in good hands. I'll go after him. No! The reality barrier here has been sealed. We'll have to find him manually. You've done well. Leave this recovery up to us. Don't worry. He should be alright if someone's to take him in. He'll need all the help he can get right now. Tyler! Tyler! Ryan's virtualizer. The pendant was cracked as he cradled it. Why would he leave this behind? Caitlin was at a loss for words. He thanked Kid for retrieving it. He suggested Caitlin to warp themselves back to reality and find his son if they can. They dissipated within seconds. It was actually during their victory that a young woman around his age took him in while he was still unconscious. She was thin and looked around his age, though she had an oriental complexion. Her shiny black hair was pulled back into a small ponytail. She was wearing a purple tank top, denim jeans, and black stilettos. With as much strength as she could muster, she pulled him on his back into the temple itself. As for the surviving mutants, the uproar eventually subsided, and the remaining coaches returned to retrieve their own teammates. From Bones to Crazy Bones, excepting Mick Wimple and the 60 Whiners, to Trickster, Mad Max, and Dante Inferno, to Bricka, Buck Troll, Tossa Bricka, and Buddy Riot, and even Madness, Median, and Ice Bodies. Though the teams led by Stratoblaster, Crux, and the Warden, and most of the Techies, Evils, Slayers, and Bashers were unable to survive. The malicious machines from the offensive themselves have been decommissioned, and the General just received word from Tyler that he'd reprogrammed them. He also thought that maybe he'd utilize the intel from virtual reality to restore the mutants that had fallen during the war, including Cheetah's personal favorite species, the aliens. The coach finally gathered the War Slammers and the special team. He congratulated everyone, including Kid, Bloodclot, Snake, and the twin trolls, Moon Spew Puke, for a job well done. During that time, they noticed the superhumans and skeletons had regained their lost flesh, restored their identities, and the latter group actually started bleeding, showing that their humanity was growing back. Everyone was shocked to the core and hardly recognized each other without their mutated appearances. To Clot, this was a similar process when his pal JB also had been restored, when Ryan and the late professor reversed the transmutant curse. However, he wasn't expecting this to happen to them. Neither was Snake. As he gazed into his football helmet he took off, he saw he looked similar to that member from Kiss without wearing makeup. With his long wavy jet black hair and fully healed complexion, he began to grin at himself. Wow, I actually adore mirrors a heck of a lot more. Look at me! He said to his fellow mutants. Then he began to notice Snake, who was no longer a member of the undead. Snake looked older and wiser with her own peach-whitish face. She also had some thick, vibrant lips no longer covered in scars. Her teeth were shiny and new, and her long, sleek hair and eyebrows appeared straight out of a human magazine. She also had on a navy blue coat and tight black pants covered in cleavage. Clot was completely awed by her spanking new beauty. He managed to find his words. What happened to you? She gave him a stern demeanor. Why? Grimlord's demise did it. We vanquished all the vile from virtual reality. So, how do I look? Looks good. They marched toward each other and admired their attire in a close, warm-hearted fashion. Or at least that's what Snake and her cronies were feeling. Meanwhile, Caitlin just turned into a retro form and Tyler emerged beside her. She and JB hugged each other tightly as he was so glad to see them back in one piece. The elder cleared his throat and reiterated they must find Ryan. Curious, the black trooper listened on his predicament and grew just as concerned as they were. The troops and Tyler were walking on an empty road that overlooked the Buddhist temple, wondering if this was completely accurate. They had been searching for clues, especially through Galileo, going through everyone in Crossworld City. Razor Kid, are you sure in your discretion this is where you dropped off Ryan? Yeah, I think so. After a quick display coming from his own communicator that was being... damn scrolls. That was being projected, he did manage to see it. Yes! That's it! This is the place! The duo was overjoyed, though Tyler wasn't quite uplifted. This is a very sacred place. Ryan must have been taken in from this exact spot. He bent down to the street as if he knew the precise spot where he was dropped off. He then faced his comrades. We can't just barge in here. I have a feeling he's going to go through a long recovery. Why do you say that, Tyler? Well, remember the time when you guys rescued me from Grimlord out of the virtual cavern and then brought me to the town to recuperate? I'm afraid it won't be that simple. The process may be similar, but I'm afraid he'll do something he hasn't done before. And that is... About a day later, at the secret room in Tao's dojo, the general told Cheetah through her own VRVT that Ryan was beginning to fight his demons. Demons? Where are they? No, I mean his inner demons. You mean that Ryan is being possessed or something? No. No, Cheetah, it means that Ryan has some personal demons inside. At first, the young trooper was astonished by Klotz and Snake's human-like appearances. What he's trying to say is, Ryan just needs to recuperate for a while. You know how your mind sometimes can't let things go, and it distracts you with its negative thoughts? Well, that's basically what it is, only it's something more negative. His feelings, stress, loss, pain, sadness, emptiness, sometimes anger and feeling alone or helpless. It's like he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD for short. I have been through this once, and so has my distant relatives. I am the general, after all. She wondered if he would be all right and whether or not she can see him again, but the mutants didn't give her much of an answer, that it takes time for a person to recover and heal the scars Grimlord left. They believed he's been dealing with them since his dad disappeared 10 years ago, and the darkness on top of it. As the transmission ended, Cheetah walked out. On the PC in Tao's dojo, JB linked it to Galileo. I believe I can trace Ryan as well as read his vitals with this. Only one way to find out. While the bot was scanning it, he came across a few images with lines that formed double helixes, those that looked like EMV waves. How is he, JB? As he headed over to the keyboard, according to schematics uploaded by Galileo from the virtualizer Kid found, he said he's physically sure Ryan's ready. Mentally, he's not so sure. There was a slight change in his brainwave patterns. Teller guessed he must have gotten a concussion during the strangle from Grimlord depleting his oxygen, and while he was escaping from the Dark Fortress. He decided to let Kid bring Ryan's virtualizer to the temple he's in. He was then comfortably wrapped in a black velvet cloth along with his blue-red mobile device. Ryan wound up inside a dim-lit bedroom laying in a comfortable bed, was being tended to by the young Oriental woman as she used a warm cloth to cleanse his face and soothe his head. Later, she then let him sip a warm broth. He was still blacked out and very weak. Slowly but surely, Ryan's almond eyes eventually started to flutter and open. Felt his body was being weighed down heavily like 1,000,000,000 tons. With his blurry vision and heavy head, he looked around. He thought he was still in virtual reality, but from his surroundings, everything seemed organic, including that lush orchid growing within an elaborate flower pot sitting on a nightstand beside him. There was another one at the other side with a statue of a lucky cat. The room still gave off a warm glow from a few flickering aroma candles. He slowly sat up, still very groggy as his eyes struggled to stay awake. It seems that you've finally come around. Looked toward the serene voice and saw her. He was deeply admired by how she looked. Maybe it was just the lightheadedness. Who are you? My name is Ling Yu. I was the one who brought you here. saw you collapse on the street outside not too far from here. You seemed so weak, so pale and out of it. I'm Ryan Steele. Where am I? This is one of the ancient Buddhist temples in Crossworld City, although this in particular is interior, and it's a bit further away from the other open-air one. My parents used to own this place. Now I'm the only one. I see. His head drooped for a few moments before he perked up a little. Oh, I really want to thank you for saving me. I, I was... The cat got his tongue. He wasn't sure how to describe the precarious situation he escaped from. He felt so relieved he wasn't still in Grimlord's fortress or in virtual reality for that matter. Ling just laid a caressing hand on top of his and whispered, "Try to get some rest. I can see you're still not well." He did just that as he laid his head. He fell back to sleep within minutes. Several hours later, during the sunny afternoon, he was strong enough to walk alongside Ling. She had shown him the rounds, including a very beautiful koi pond. Some trees with pink petals were covering it, and he grew intrigued by the exotic surroundings. Ling said it was a little something to remind her of home. Whenever the weather's nice, she'd meditate and relax at that spot. Ryan used to do the same at his own sanctuary. During their trek through, he suddenly noticed himself and Ling holding hands pretty tightly. It was a nice warm-hearted sensation, but he sternly let go. I'm sorry. No, don't be. I didn't mean to be so intrusive. It's all right. I always seem to have this effect. He calmed down his raving heart and mind. As they got back to the entryway, Ling spotted something lying on the steps. It was a large piece of black velvet. As he opened it, he looked inside. There was a few of Ryan's belongings. The shiny object reflecting the sunlight got Ling's attention. Holding it gently, he described to Ling that it was one of his dad's memos for him when he disappeared for 10 years. She really did admire the beautiful pendant. She was also curious of the special walkie-talkie he had, as she'd never seen anything so small and advanced. Can it actually call someone? Well, only one way to find out. Through his VRVT still functioning, to which Ling was fascinated with, Ryan made the call. He was inside a kitchen of sorts while Ling was fixing him up something to help him regain his lost strength. It was displayed on the computer screen at the dojo, and he said he'd be staying at the Buddhist temple he was taken to, unlike his dad's. So far, he wanted to stay until he's ready to finally overcome his personal demons and see his friends who were eagerly waiting for him. They, especially Cheetah, were getting very anxious. Look, I gotta go. I'll come back to you all soon. I promise. And I thought I was the one who had these problems. How can you tell? I'm a general. I used to be a part of the military, as were my distant relatives. Madness, Ice Bodies, Median. We are all the same when combating battles both within and without. Heck, I always thought that Tyler would suffer once he came to, since he went missing for a whole decade. Jeez, he should be so dang lucky his mind hasn't fried yet, especially when he was at Starkheart. Sorry, sir. But why would Ryan go through all this? Maybe the final battle between him and Grimlord was too much for him. Besides, it was usually him who would take on the most daunting of tasks. He was often alone. That may be, but I feel that he lost his train of thought. Then he collected them. I think since I used to have the sins working for Grimlord and being like a vagabond, I believe Ryan's carrying the burden. That my sins are somehow being passed down to him. Or what if it's destiny? What if it's destiny? It actually could be. He has to finish what the Father has started, but from in here. I can believe that. So can I. A lot of unique traits had been inherited by his father, including his pure heart. He can break this curse with love and support. Night after night, Ryan had been suffering from night terrors, being Grimlord or some other dark disaster appearing in his mind. Through Tao, it was later revealed that the caretaker's name was Ling Hu, as meant for compassionate and understanding, while the surname meant jade or rain. She masters in Taekwondo much like him in karate, and he began to notice that she and Ryan were sharing a sacred bond over time, like the Florence Nightingale effect, as Blood Clot said. During his recovery, however, Ryan said nothing of his VR powers, nor the fight against Grimlord, only that he's been having trouble fighting his inner turmoil. About a week had passed until Ryan led her to Tao's dojo as he was fully healed, as well as reasoning with his former self within a tall mirror in his older VR armor. He hallucinated as he looked into it, battled his doppelganger, including his lethal double lightning hands. At first he avoided its attacks until he had no choice but to use his laser pistol and laser blade on it, causing massive damage. He never finished it off as his illusion begged him to, saying it was an inferior self, and questioned what it would make of itself since it realized who the real Ryan was. He accepted it as himself, and all his purged emotions, and reassured it that the dark days are behind it, and it's no longer alone. He persuaded it to recall all his dad's teachings, including that of humanity, that all of their past experiences, including the dark times, have made them into who they were. He forgave it as he got himself together. Then he and his reflection touched hands on the mirror. After that, Ryan said to Ling he has finally recuperated. He declared it was time to go back. Oh, you're leaving? I am. But I never wanted to leave her so soon. Of all the times they had spent, I want you to come with me to Tao's dojo. I'm certain my friends will be waiting for me there. You'll love Jeb. He's my dog. She actually agreed to head there together, and he promised her he'd visit her often. They took a nice long stroll there. As they got inside, he hesitated as he noticed his friends in their usual quarters. He told her to stay, and after the excited reunion, Tyler and Tao questioned how he was able to combat his personal demons he kept referring to. That was when she came in. He gave her a nod and introduced Ling despite her shyness. To the main quartet and Tyler, it'd take a while to get used to Jeb no longer speaking in their language, just communicating as any other canine. Regardless, everyone almost instantly warmed up to her, almost always appreciating her for healing Ryan's deep mental and physical wounds. They could even tell he was in top-notch condition because of how exuberant he looked, including his eyes. As Ling was being shown around by Tao, Cheetah, and Tyler, the duo wanted to give Ryan a little pep talk. So Ryan, how do you feel towards her? He was so dumbfounded at the statement. JB clarified that if he's starting to have any deep feelings for her. From what Ryan told them, it seemed that even though it's been a week, they were pretty much connected while his soul, body, and mind were being tended by her. He was hesitant with the thought. But I thought you wouldn't want me to fall for someone. I mean, I never fell in love with anyone before. Still, I feel so. When the others got back, Cheetah was still talking with Ling and Jeb. Tao advised him, holding his pet iguana. Oh, you should never doubt what your heart tells you, Ryan. Even though your mind would think differently, you should still listen to it. You must never be afraid for what you are feeling. He's right, son. I remembered having these feelings of doubt, nervousness, fear that I might reject her and let her down. You must not be afraid and try to drive her away. Believe me, I had these same conflicts and sensations like you do right now when I first met your mom. I later knew this was my true calling. Don't be afraid with what your instincts tell you, Ryan. Do not hesitate. Respond to her like how she would respond to you. And never doubt your inner feelings. It'll come in time. Oh, and Ryan? Don't ever mind us. Yeah, we got your back, buddy, no matter what decision you'll make. We had been doing some thinking. It was a surprise, though Caitlin and JB accepted their own relationship. Sometimes they worried it may not last, but if it would, then it'd be no problem. Caitlin always wondered who would actually betroth her, since she felt she was in the middle as to whether her soulmate would be either Ryan or JB in fear of alienating the other. She did highly regret falling for Percy, though, as he was clearly not her type. But she figured it'd be JB after all, if Ryan and Link's relationship should work out in the end and flourish. Besides, in the past, the two troopers were seen alone together quite a lot, from battling to when they needed to cut Ryan a few breaks. He just smiled at them and thanked everyone for their unwavering support. Hours later, he and Ling were at the same shrine where he visited so many times, and as they held each other close watching the sunset, he made a soliloquy of his thoughtful lesson taught by his dad as one of the very last. Humanity, it can always be our greatest virtue. We must never underestimate the power of the human spirit and what it can do, whether it be by blood, used through love, kindness, and social intelligence. It could be our most powerful weapon, or it could be our greatest curse, but it can always help to get us through, even during our darkest hours. My dad said that all our past experiences, even our turmoil, our actions, our morals and values, and our personal desires determines who we are. And I realized it can be used through anyone, no matter how old or how young, or whether it be a subspecies such as a mutant, a robot, a higher mind, or even man's best friend. We all have some degree of humanity inside us. It just depends on how we use it. It all comes down from deep within. It pours from the mind, body, and soul. There was no doubt in my mind when Razor Kid once uttered this. We are VR. That was one of the most treasured lessons I will never forget. As for the mutants, it's most likely that Bloodclot, Snake, Razor Kid, the Pukes, and Nelson, as well as the troopers teaming up, may be the former Galaxy Aces' substitutes. Most of the War Slamers also pitched in, and some of the teammates performed on both sides, especially the troopers. Kid was the quarterback, Ryan was the team captain, Clot was the kicker and running back, the Pukes provided great defense, and Caitlin, JB, Snake, and Cheetah were great linebackers. They actually helped them win the Mayhem Bowl against the league's two best teams, while Tyler and the general coached from the sidelines. And finally, episode 100. The future is now. About 15 years later, Cheetah finally moved back to her childhood home at an assisted living apartment in Crossworld City for the handicapped. The first place she went to was, of course, Tao's dojo. She went in expecting to see Tao himself, but instead met up with a distinctive individual. As she approached the main spacious area, which seemed rather familiar and different to her, the stranger marched up. His tense body looked it had aged with time. He had on broader shoulders, muscles. Still had some short, dark blonde hair, but it appeared to be faded instead of looking vibrant. He welcomed her to the place, and his voice was a bit more coarse than before. Complete in his karate wardrobe, he gave her a strong handshake and introduced himself. I'm Ryan Steele. I now own the place, though I sometimes share it with my dad. He and I are business partners and experts in martial arts, don't you know? Made a striking pose. Then everything was in place. Ryan Steele? Then she became very ecstatic as she recognized the mentor she once knew so long ago. Ryan felt the same while he remembered Cheetah. Their sentences kind of ran into each other as they asked how they've been, or how great it was to see each other after so many years. He was about to close up, and he couldn't believe it was Cheetah, the one who recruited the mutants in their victorious battle against Grimlord. They were very happy to see each other, and Ryan offered to take a seat at the usual location where JB's PC stood. It was replaced by a large black LCD screen accompanied by a keyboard. Come, we have much to discuss. especially since that day when Cheetah moved away to Hill Valley. While the conversation took root, Ryan's cheery voice started to return, much to Cheetah's joyfulness as was hers. It was almost like yesterday since they first met here and became such close friends, until that dreadful day when she had to relocate after her parents' divorce. Very sorry to hear that. Have you made any contact with your mom? He heard that Cheetah and her dad have been living happily together with a significant other, although their relationship with their distant parent had shortly become strained. It's never easy being a single parent. I'll always remember it wasn't easy when my dad raised me. I never knew my mom, though, as she passed away moments after I was born. There were some complications during delivery, he said. Changing the painful subject, she asked how the other former VR troopers were. He said that Caitlin and JB had also moved out to Los Angeles, where she can fulfill her dream as a Hollywood reporter and journalist. JB finished his scholarship and graduated from Crossworld University in his field of technology, top of his class. However, Ryan never really wanted to advance to higher learning. Instead, he decided to stay within the city and run the dojo after Taro's untimely passing. Since that tragic loss, he and his dad decided to keep the establishment running, though keep the namesake in his honor, as well as Tao's brothers. Also, being that a dog can live up to 13 years, Jeb also passed away. Ryan actually owns a brown puppy from Jeb's late girlfriend, Princess, named him Jeb Jr., although having him talk wasn't quite on the agenda yet. She actually heard a bark, and the energetic brown pup ran up to her. She was overjoyed by his presence, and he gave her a few smooches on her cheeks. There was an upside to all these losses, and that was when he finally had the courage to marry Ling, the same woman that saved his life that one time after Grimlord's demise. If it wasn't for her, I never would have been alive right now. I then proposed to her about a year later on that day we've met. He showed her his own ring made of tiny pearls, specially made by her. Oh, let me introduce you to our kids. He stood up and left, leaving the stunned Cheetah behind. Kids? As in plural? He returned moments later with his son. These are my kids. Taylor. And Suri. This is Cheetah. She's one of my oldest friends since we were nearly as young as you two. Hi, Cheetah. As they waved to her and made a bow, she waved back. Eventually, Ling returned and was glad to meet Cheetah after so many years. It was fortunate Cheetah didn't have to explain anything since Taylor was born. Ryan finally told them all about his past experiences as a real and virtual hero. He also wishes to pass it down to them. He described that Taylor specialized in karate while Suri was into taekwondo, although the dojo itself had expanded and was now designed to teach all ages a variety of martial arts, which the young ones were interested in learning. Taylor seemed to be the spitting image of his dad, as Cheetah looked like he did when Ryan was his age, albeit 15. Ryan really wanted Taylor to be a future VR trooper someday. He also said that Caitlin and JB also had kids, a son and daughter named Jerome and Katie, respectively. Tyler had been expanding the lab where the late ruin stood and is still advancing virtual technology to this day. It was actually Taylor that helped Ryan overcome his demons for good. In some meditated sequence where Ryan was trapped and Taylor courageously fought off the looming darkness, that even took the form of Grimlord at times. Together they used their talents and vanquished it. Ryan really appreciated that he was glad to have a son, and also not pass on the sins he and his father inherited. Several days later, the troopers were reunited at last. Soon the kids got to the newly advanced laboratory and they were finally ready to test their new VR abilities. Only this time there were 4, with Taylor, Katie, Jerome, and Cheetah. She actually retrieved her virtualizer as Ryan made the decision for safekeeping at the dojo's enchanted chamber until she moved back from Hill Valley as memos. The other children got their own pendants, albeit smaller than their elders. While everyone was watching, the children bound together and Cheetah led the transformation. Trooper transform! We are! The quartet emerged at the center of the usual desolate landscape. Cheetah wore her usual avatar, though slightly taller to fit her stature. Taylor got his dad's older armor, the blue and red, that was shorter than his. Kitty got the same avatar her mom's double used to wear, and Jerome wore the same avatar his dad had. Tyler spoke over. Good luck, future troopers. A new adventure awaits you all. Make us proud. Story ends after they did a team salute, after they first huddled, made a hand pile, and cried as they released and raised their hands. We are troopers! The future for the next generation of the virtual reality troopers is just beginning. Much like that scene in Dragon, Ryan was able to overcome his past demon for good with the help of his son Taylor. Like Link's name, they were made up, and the former troopers still needed someone to carry on their legacy. The series really needed to get with the modern times and evolve virtual reality too. So, the story as well as the show as a whole is finally complete. No doubt that it's one of my all-time favorite series and some of the most nostalgic. This was something I always wanted to do a long time ago. Perhaps someday, Saban can get off the overly saturated Power Rangers wagon and focus on its overlooked sister series and do the same. Like they all say, all good things must come to an end, and I'm glad I was able to do so. And of course, I'm the Ecron Rider, signing out, and, well, I just hope VR Troopers would have a future advancement to the series, while also staying true to the original. I just wish not a lot of time has gone by. So this would truly be my last project before I go on hiatus, unlike a trip in paradise. So, I'll explain this in a later video. Until then, this is the Ecron Rider signing out. Take care, everyone.